sometimes when I close my eyes, I see things. I might see a television playing an old-time cartoon and feel as if I'm a child watching it. Or maybe I'll see a film, an old film. Once I saw something that looked as if it was one of those films from World War II, and it was the Navy, and it was playing. And I'm not ever sure where I am or what I'm doing in that moment and why I'm seeing it. Welcome to part 3 in my series of the beginning. And of course, I started with my accident and then the hospital, and now I'm home. And the reason why I was telling you about these things that I see is that this began when I came home from the hospital. That's when I started seeing this stuff, and that was the beginning of this. Coming home was difficult, of course. I tell you, I remember I had a physical therapist that I had gotten very close to, and he had told me, he said that you were going to fall. When you got home, it's going to happen once. You're going to fall. Of course, at the time, I was walking with a walker, and I walked very slowly. Nowadays, I walk with a cane, but then I was walking with a walker. And sure enough, a few days after arriving home, I fell. And by the way, I laughed. I smiled and I laughed because I knew that the physical therapist was right. And at that time, he told me, when you fall, just get up and keep going. And that's exactly what I did. I stood up and I kept going. And that was it. It was interesting. I still remember taking my first steps without a walker, and I remember crying after that, taking those first steps. Of course, nowadays, even though I can walk without a cane, I need a cane to be able to walk any long distance. And it's been challenging. But I'll always remember those first steps. And of course, going along with that are my first steps into what I can only call the beyond body. I'll share an experience with you, one of the last experiences I had a few days ago. I was tired one night after staying up, and of course I study Spanish and I work on these videos. Those are two of the things that I do in my pastime, but I was pretty tired and I shut my eyes, and the second after I shut my eyes, I opened them again and I was someplace else. Instantly, I was someplace else. It was a park of some kind, and there was green grass, and it was kind of hilly, and there were these two boys, and they were playing in the distance. And I remember it was so peaceful to me. It was such a simple setting, but it was so peaceful to me. You know, life has been very complicated in the past 4 years, and there have been so many things that have happened to me, so many challenges, but this was such a peaceful setting and so simple. I started approaching the boys and walking towards them, and for whatever reason, it seemed like they got more distant as I approached. I don't know why that was, but eventually I reached one of the boys, and he smiled, and I asked him what his name was, and he simply reached his hand out. And sometimes, by the way, sometimes I'm really hesitant to touch another being's hand when I'm either astral projecting or doing this beyond body thing that I'm able to do, because for whatever reason, I'm able to feel what I believe is their pain, and it hurts. It really truly hurts. I can feel it in my hand and my wrist, and it travels up, and it is very, very painful. So yeah, I'm hesitant about touching other beings because I don't know what I'm gonna feel. I decided though to take a chance, and I reached out, and you know, instead of taking his hand directly, I kind of reached and I took his sort of his arm, his bicep, and he took mine, and I grasped it. And when I felt it, there was no pain at all. It was a wonderful feeling. And it's interesting because it felt as solid as an arm would feel in the 3D world. It felt so solid and so real. These are things that I take note of when I do either astral projection or I do the beyond body, but especially with this beyond body, I experiment to see how real things felt, and this felt real. Totally real. This felt like a real arm. And yeah, I felt my eyes open, and I also felt my eyes blinking as I was going through this experience, and that was also interesting to me. So I was really there with this young boy, and holding his arm, and then suddenly I was back. And that's the way these things work, whether I'm astral projecting or I'm doing the beyond body. It usually ends fairly quickly. And as soon as I get back, I start to forget. This is why I began writing notes, taking notes to remember everything, because eventually it starts to slip away. As soon as I open my eyes back in the 3D world, everything starts to slip away. And of course, eventually I'd kind of gotten the idea that I might want to share this on some platform. And YouTube seemed like the best platform because, of course, you have the potential for a world audience. But it's not only that. I was guided to do this. I think that those around me, those that guided me for this. And of course, I wanted to connect with people anywhere and everywhere around the world that might be having similar experiences to me. Kind of to tell them, hey, look, it's okay, you're not going crazy, because certainly I felt at times as if I were going crazy, and I wish there was someone like that to tell me, you're okay. You're not going crazy. You're still rational. Everything's cool. So that was one reason. And another reason was because I know that there were people who wanted to start to experience astral projection at first. And, well, I wanted to be of assistance to them. I wanted to help them to have these experiences because they're amazing and they open up your mind. Perhaps they let you know that there is absolutely nothing to be afraid of in death, that death is simply a transition, and you have an opportunity to see a glimpse of what could possibly be beyond. And if the things I've seen, if that is what it is, if that's what happens when we go on, my God, it is absolutely amazing. So that's possibly a big part of the reason why I started all this. And kind of to come to a conclusion with this episode, and to in this series of episodes, for me, this has been one of the darkest times in my life, in the sense of struggling with this accident and dealing with all these things. But I think I kind of created a quote in one of my videos, which I sometimes like to do, about things that happen to us. And that sometimes the darkest things that happen to us are for beautiful reasons. And yeah, has been a lot and continues to be a lot. But I have to believe there's a purpose to all this. There's a purpose to reaching out to you and to trying to help you to develop this, if this is what you truly want, and to experience it. Anyway, this was, for me, kind of a weird episode because normally I'm a bit more structured, but that's okay. That's okay. Until next time, take care.